Hey guys, my name is Owen, aka Nitro X, and today I'm going to show you how I used the new Objekt synthesizer in my own production. Let's get into it. It has an exciter section which generates impulses that's fed through 3 resonating modules to create the sounds, and then these sounds are fed through global effects, similar to the global effects you'd find in other Reason devices such as Europa and Grain. Some sound design strategies include using the templates, using the randomizer, and using different patches. It has 2 object sections. Now, in each of these individual parts, you can pick different templates, and you can try pairing different templates around to create unique sounds, along with messing around with the exciter section. So this is a recipe for great creativity and always creating a new sound every time. With the exciter section, there is impact parts and noise parts with parameters to control the tone, attack, and envelope of each part. Now, sometimes with Objekt, the instrument can get out of tune once in a while, so it has a very helpful tuned function in the top that you can use to make sure your sound is always in tune. All right. So with that out of the way, I'm going to show you guys the track I made with Objekt. Let's get into it.
I never thought I would hate my own brain, but every thought's got me so afraid. Yeah, I admit there's a problem. The solution is always been you. I can't live like this. Oh, all in my head, thinking of the words that I've always said. Sometimes I can't stop my pacing, thinking of the ways I'm stuck not changing. It's you to come and save me, to save me, to save me.
Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to break down here is how I made the main chord plucks that carry through the verse here. So what I did was I actually did a bunch of layers of Objekt. My friend Ben Lawrence, who helped do the vocals on this song and helped write it, he sent me some chord plucks a long time ago when we started this song, and he sent me some MIDI, and he sent me like his actual audio files of his sounds. So what I ended up doing was I kind of actually chopped up his audio files into a progression that I really liked. And then I took the MIDI and I like mimicked that in Objekt. And then I did a bunch of presets in Objekt, and then I bounced it all down. And then I actually chopped it further to make like that glitchy Hyperpop sound. So let me play you what the final product is of these chord plucks, and then I'll break down each of the individual layers for you. So you can hear those little glitch kind of things in the background, kind of panned, and I'm going to show you how I did that later. But first off, let's get into these presets. So first one I chose to use was the Kalimba preset, Kalimba 1 to be exact, under just the regular presets here in Objekt. I didn't really change too much in this sound. All I really did was adjust the exciter noise section, just to kind of fill out the high end. I kept it a pretty short release and decay just so it didn't ring on too long, because otherwise it, you know. You get into this very ambient sound, which is just not what I'm going for in this track. Also, I ended up shortening the decay a bunch on the reverb just because I wanted, like I said, a tight sound. So the next preset I did was called Glass Wave. You can find that under the bells and mallet section. Kind of left everything else the way it was. I really liked the sound, so thought it made a nice layer in there. Then the next preset I used was one called Lyre of Old Elpis, which you can find in the pluck string section. So what I did with this one, again, not too much. I brought down the diffuse shape here a little bit, so it changed kind of the attack of the instrument. And I brought up the time as well. In the model section, I actually ended up turning on the model. I have the pitch up an octave. So I left actually the same model preset that was in there on the original one, even though it wasn't turned on. And that's about all I did on this preset. Everything else is about the same. I did turn off the distortion though, and turned off the reverb as well, because I thought it was a little bit too long and ambient, and I didn't really like the distortion that was on it. Then I believe that is all for the pluck layers. Now, what I actually did here, if you listen in the chord sample that I played earlier, you can hear this like bouncing sound effect. What I did actually to inspire that was when I was adjusting Ben's old plucks in Melodyne, I moved the bottom note up to make a note that I actually wanted to have in it. And it made this cool bouncing sound, and I just loved it. So I wanted to figure out how to replicate that in Objekt. So what I actually did in Reason here was I took my note, which is an A in the bass note. I have the main track here playing the top two notes of an A sus4, and then in the bass it starts on an A, and then it bends up 7 semitones quickly to make that bouncing sound. And then I did that on all 3 layers. However, you can hear there's a bit of an issue. So on this one here, this preset, because the decay is so long, when I went down to bounce the note again to go the doing, doing, on the second one, you can hear it goes. I just bounced that down. And I did the same thing with the kalimba preset. And then we resolve it again by going back down to the A on the root note and just do a standard A. Yeah, that's pretty much all the layers of the chord plucks. Once I finished the layers, I took it, bounced the whole thing down, and then that's when the fun begins, because that's when I started chopping stuff up. So what I actually did here was on this last chord, or sorry, not the last chord, this one right here, just in the middle. I took it, I went on 16th notes and just took the razor tool, chopped it up, and shrunk it back. So you can hear, and then took snap off and just shrunk it back to like there. Just to give it some more glitchy sound. And then I did the same over here. And then what I actually did on this one was I took a separate track and I chopped up this last chord. I added a little bit of digital distortion, turned up the resolution and frequency. It gives it like that digital sounding top end. And then I repeat that on the end of every phrase of the chord progression. And yeah, that's pretty much how I put together the chord plucks. So I broke down the chord plucks for you guys, but there's another huge element of Objekt in the song that I want to go through and how I made it, which is the arps in the chorus and the second verse. So what I did was started with some different presets. Here I started with this preset called attached string. The only thing I did end up changing was the parameters in the exciter noise section. I did bring down the release a little bit and then a little bit of EQ. So I was just brightening it up and then adding a little bit of tone in the mids and bringing down the low gain. And then I turned off the reverb, and I believe I added some on the bus. Yeah, I had some Valhalla Supermassive on the bus. So I wanted most of these plucks to be dry. The next one I actually did an original sound here. I think I picked one of these. It was something like one of the wood presets. The exciter, I turned up the click and the hardness a bunch, kind of trying to replicate the sound that is in a combinator patch called Norwegian Boy, and it has a really nice light tone to it. So then from there, just adjusted the decay a little bit. I wanted to keep it decently short, but not too long. So I just kind of got to a place where it felt good. And then under Objekt 1, I believe I picked another preset as well. I can't remember exactly which one I ended up picking. The collision I think I played with a little bit as well. So I ended up using a preset called Bright Pluck next. It was actually very much of a shorter, like a quick attack pluck. It was the diffuse time was very short. So I actually brought it up to delay the attack. Then after that, I made another original sound here. I believe I brought the MIDI notes an octave down. For this one, I think I picked one of the tines and then bell sounds over here. And I also kept the decay times pretty short on these. With this one, it is a very hard sound, so I didn't end up using a lot of click on it. It was very much just the hardness on the impact with a lot of velocity. So that's just to kind of get that bell sound. A lot of the stuff you do in Objekt is just a lot of playing around with decay, dispersion, pitch mod, and collision, and the damping. It's kind of just using these templates, I find, is a really easy way to get a start on an idea, and then you can kind of mess those templates up to get what's in your head and what you're really kind of going for in your sound design. I added a few elements in the drop here. Most of these were just presets. I found this one really cool distorted bass I really liked. And wow, I was really surprised with the dub sounds actually in here. I believe it's under the bass section, the barks. Yes, these are crazy good. Like, holy, they're fire. So I just layered those on the bass. Another thing I did was I added the snare drum from the Objekt drum kit here. Another thing I did was with the drums, I found this hi-hat preset that was really cool. So what I did was I took the LFO here and I routed it to right here. You can see I routed it to the pitch on Objekt. So it's doing pitch automation, and then that same pitch automation that I'm doing with the LFO, I am routing that to the CV-out1 on the back of Objekt, and then routing that into the pan on the hi-hat. So as it's pitch shifting, it's also shifting the panning of the hi-hat. So I definitely recommend looking into the Objekt drum kit if you're especially making like future bass or future pop. And I think that's all I added with Objekt. I had a lot of fun making this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.
To save me.